This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at CES 2014. I'm joined by Paul Yost, who's Chief of R&D for YEI. Welcome to the program, Paul.
Thanks for being here.
Now, tell us about YEI, because you've got your hands in all kinds of stuff.
YEI essentially started in 1999. I was a university professor, had gotten a little bit frustrated with not seeing my research go out in the real world and do real things, so we started YEI as a way to allow that to happen. We have our hands in healthcare doing artificial intelligence systems. We have our hands in some motor control stuff for robotics, and that led us to inertial sensors for robotics, which led us to putting those inertial sensors on humans, which is the project we're looking at today.
If we could backtrack just a little bit, you said you were a university professor. Whereabouts? What were you teaching?
I was teaching at a small university called Shawnee State University, which is actually in Portsmouth, Ohio, which is where we're located now, and I was in the computer engineering department.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So now my understanding is YEI, among other things, I notice a lot of manufacturers use your technology for head tracking purposes. Is that correct?
Yeah, we actually have our technology being used not just for head tracking, but all kinds of military, aerospace, industrial, medical applications. So our sensors live in a lot of different, pretty much every major market space we have our sensors in there in some way or another.
Can you name some products that might be familiar with that your stuff would be in?
Not off the top of my head. There are tons and tons. I know the U.S. Navy uses our sensors on autonomous surface vehicles. We have some other autonomous robotic systems, quadcopters using them. I'm not sure which ones I'm allowed to say or not without my cheat sheet. So
don't worry, I won't kill you if you reveal something. We'll leave that to the military. I'm just joking, half joking. So let's talk a little bit about PrioVR. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly.
PrioVR, correct.
So how did this come about?
PrioVR came about with us essentially just for fun. I mean, a lot of us that work there had this interest in gaming and virtual reality for many years, and we had these inertial sensors we created for robotics. And we said, well, it would be cool to just stick these on us and make games out of that. And we did that in-house just as this fun research project in our lab, and we realized it was so fun. And at the time, all of this technology had kind of come together with the form of lower cost head mounted displays, and we decided that it'd be great to, rather than sit around and wait for this full immersion suit to happen, that we have the sensing technology already done. Let's do that part, and we'll let other people provide the eyes of the system. We'll provide the body for the system. So can
you give me an estimate of timing? Like when did this come about?
We had been doing inertial sensors really for the last 7 years on the R&D cycle there. We've been selling them for really the last 4 to 5. About 2 years ago, we started using them for motion capture purposes, and then about probably 6 or 7 months in there, we decided that we could make a product from that. We actually make an existing motion capture suit that's much more expensive than the one that we're doing here. But along those lines, we started thinking about how we could engineer the system to be low enough cost that consumers could afford it. And that's the cycle that we're in now and what this project is all about.
Okay, so the gentleman behind us is actually wearing the suit, and I'm going to try this out. There's no way in heck that I'm leaving here without trying the suit for myself, but maybe you could describe it for us.
Okay, essentially what Chris is wearing right now is our upper body only version of the PrioVR suit. We also have a core version which is geared towards gamers, and we have a full version which is more geared toward professional animators, people that want to make content for games. And the main difference between those suits is the number of sensors. So the upper body only, which we call the light version of the suit, essentially is for gamers that want to sit on their couch, be lazy, but still have kind of the ability to punch things and hit things and interact, aim weapons, shoot weapons with their upper body. The core suit adds the legs and an additional sensors on the lower body so that you can actually get up, run around, dive on the ground, roll around on the ground, and have that translated in the game. And the Pro version adds foot articulation, shoulder articulation, and an additional body or sensor on the torso, so you can get really, really precise, fine-grained animation quality results out of that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask what the availability is on this.
The availability of the PrioVR suits is these are actually currently prototypes. They're fairly advanced prototypes. We have a Kickstarter that's launching February 14th, Valentine's Day, so it's easy to remember. And if you have a loved one that's into games or VR, perfect gift for them. It's going to be a 45-day campaign. We're going to raise somewhere around, we're not sure on the amount we're trying to raise yet, but it's going to be somewhere around $100,000 or less. And that money is all going to go to kind of mass production thing. So we already have the underlying technology developed, so we just need money to do the textiles for making an ergonomic suit that's easy to put on and solve a lot of those problems that you need with mass production as far as packaging and casing and things like that.
Can you define the product for us? Like what I mean, you described it a little bit here, but in your vision, what would be the ultimate vision from a successful Kickstarter?
The ultimate vision for us for a successful Kickstarter is having a product that is easy to use. You put it on, it just works. So it's something you can put on in less than 2 minutes and be in the game in less than 2 minutes, and something that is at a price point that's affordable for essentially mass market consumers, the average everyday gamer. And that being said, our price point that we're shooting for the Pro suit, all the suits are going to be under $400, which essentially accuracy-wise, we compete with sensor or inertial motion capture systems that are in the $60,000 to $90,000 range. We're doing that for under $400, and then the light version, the upper body only, we're going to be under $300, somewhere in the high $270, $280 range.
Now let's talk about software. I'm hearing a lot about the hardware components, which of course is perhaps the most critical aspect to this. For a game developer or application developer, how easy or difficult is it to code for this?
Essentially, we're putting a lot of effort into that as well as the hardware side of things. We're putting a lot of effort into making it as easy as possible to get to use our system in any development environment. So we're supporting all the major game engines. The demo that Chris is using here is using the Unity engine. But what we do is we have this DLL that's essentially a drop-in for a game engine like Unity, that you drop it in, you attach your rigged character to that DLL, and then you instantly have your motions driving that character rig around. And what we have also is this technique that we have developed here, which is this hybrid approach, where you can have it seamlessly transition between a sequence-driven animation and the body-driven animation. And so you can see in the game here, you can use the stick to run around in the environment. And you see, if you see Derek behind me is doing that as well. He can use this analog stick to run through the environment, but then when he stops, he can kick his feet, he can crouch on the ground, he can roll around, which is perfect for navigating really large spaces in a seamless way where you still have full body control of that.
Now, I'd estimate within the last 2 years, there's been a lot of excitement around virtual reality and offshoot technologies like, the Rift, Sony, but then you've got these additional peripherals like Virtuix Omni and other products as well. Have software developers come forward with expressing interest in this?
Yeah, we're actually talking to a lot of software developers right now, including major game houses, and they do have interest in this. Their main concern is that it doesn't take too much of their development time. They're already pressed for time. They want something that's going to be easy to integrate, and so that's why we're putting a lot of effort into supporting the development side of things, making it easy. And our demos, like the ones that are here, we're going to have open source. We also have an open source API, an SDK that makes it really, really easy for an indie developer that's not using one of the major engines to still talk to our system and get the data they need out of it.
All right, well, I want to give this a go, so let's get started.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm obviously wearing the PrioVR system. I've got a rifle in one hand. Sorry, zombie in front of me. Of course, I'm using the Rift. Oh. There we go. So literally, like I take it even recognizes my elbow joints, and each hand is independent. Does it have a body recognition as well?
Yeah, so you can lean around corners. Yes, you can lean around corners. You can duck behind things, and it will track all of that.
Now, I don't know if you've been toying with this yet, but of course I'm wearing an Oculus Rift, which has head tracking. So is the tracking between the suit's body and the Oculus tracking handled separately?
Right now, the Oculus is handling the head tracking, although we do have our sensors for head tracking that we've used with other head-mounted displays. And the body tracking is done by our system, but it allows you to do things that you can't do easily with just the Rift, like lean around corners like you're doing now in the game.
Now, for those who can't see this, this is kind of like a military / zombie apocalypse game. Did you code this internally?
Yes, this was a demo that we had written internally, essentially to demo our technology. It's based on a Unity demo that was pre-existing. We added our suit code into that, which really didn't take us that much of it. It took an afternoon to get that working, and then we've tuned it since then. But essentially, zombies are a pretty cool thing to fight and not politically incorrect to attack and shoot too much, so that's what we decided to bring to the conference.
Now, I know in the case of VR, I kind of know the answer to this, but I have to ask the question, is sometimes you could use like a virtual reality driver to take existing games and extrapolate them to something that a display like this could understand. By the way, as I pointed my finger to my head, a finger literally pointed at my eye, so I have to be conscious of that with this thing. But do you see this as something that game developers have to natively program to properly support, or do you anticipate the potential for middleware to do some of the heavy lifting on your behalf?
Essentially, there's going to make gameplay smooth and fun, it's going to require some work on the side of the developers, just because it's a different control mechanism than they're used to seeing in games. But our goal is to make it as easy as possible for those developers to be able to do that. So the more we can provide drop-in support for the major game engines, the more we can provide an open API to allow anybody to access the contents or the data streams that come out of here, the better. Now, we do all of the computations and calculations in the sensors and in the hub itself, which essentially frees the host system from any processing load other than the communication.
Now, in this case, you're combined with the Oculus Rift. I'm sure I would take it. This is, yeah. I mean, you could work with other solutions as well. Is there a mix of products, and you don't have to name brands, but maybe the nature of products that this would work really well with? I mean, obviously you've got the Rift. Do you think this would go well with let's say, a VR treadmill, or are there other things that would combine well with this?
Yeah, we've actually been talking with two of the major VR treadmill manufacturers, or at least planned manufacturers, and we've talked with other head-mounted display manufacturers as well, and some of them upcoming head-mounted display manufacturers. And our system is basically system agnostic as far as the head-mounted display. That our goal is to let other people provide the eyes, and then we're providing the body in that virtual environment.
Now, you know, there's the bad word of the industry, and I'm being facetious, is latency. You know, and do you know if you've defined a spec yet as to what kind of latency this adds or could add to games or software?
The latency that we're getting on the system that you're using right now is somewhere under 10 milliseconds. That we were getting somewhere around 7. So that's from the data coming out of the sensor to getting into the game. We're somewhere around that 7 milliseconds right now. Now, when you have a full body suit, there's a little more data, so we're closer to 10 than 7. But our goal is to keep it under 10 milliseconds for an entire full body suit.
Now, there's no need to name products, but I mean, there are alternatives that use, let's say, like a magnetic field to detect movement. You obviously made a choice that, I mean, this is like an exoskeleton that I'm wearing. Is there a reason why you went with this technology? Are there advantages to doing it this way versus other methods?
The main advantage that we see over something optical or something magnetic is that our system is entirely. There's several advantages. The advantage of our optical systems is you have no line of sight to worry about. You don't have a limited capture space. You could actually literally take our suit. You could stand up, assuming that the Oculus was wireless, and you could walk around in a very large space and do anything you want, including falling on the ground and rolling around, which is another thing that optical systems have a hard time with. If you lie on the ground and roll into a fetal position, an optical system is going to have a hard time detecting that body pose accurately, where our system, since we're measuring it directly, is always going to be able to detect that accurately. The disadvantage of the magnetic systems is, again, a limited capture space, and also a limited number of sensors that are possible. Where our system, you could have as many players as you could want in a same small area interacting with each other without difficulty.
Now, video games have obviously been, I would almost call it the low-hanging fruit. It just seems to be what has been captured everyone's imagination. But do you see applications for this outside of the video game space? Do you have some ideas that you've been toying with?
Yeah, we actually are in talks with a lot of people that are in serious application spaces, like obviously military and training simulations, firefighter training simulations, things like that. We've talked to people about that. We also have a number of users that are in the medical space for rehabilitation, sports kind of performance analysis and measurement. We have people in all of those spaces that are either using our existing sensors or talking to us about these suits that we're developing right now.
Well, this is really, really exciting stuff. I mean, you've got a Kickstarter coming up. Remind me again when that Kickstarter is taking place?
The Kickstarter relaunch is February 14th. It's going to be a 45-day campaign, and we actually have a very quick turn time that we're planning to have from Kickstarter completion to product. We expect to have the first units start becoming available in June of this year, and then we expect to have mass production numbers shortly following that.
Now, I know this is a bit of a tough question, but I think it's hopefully it's a helpful one. You described it as a Kickstarter relaunch, because I know you did try. I think you did try to do something similar, but this time round, are you doing something different? Do you have different plans that will make it even more appealing for potential consumers of this?
Yeah, the first Kickstarter, we learned a lot from that, and one of the nice things about the gamer community is they're brutally honest, and so they gave us the upper body only suit was something that we didn't initially have in our first Kickstarter. We figured everybody would want a full body suit. The hand controllers that you're using right now, that's something that we didn't have in our initial launch that allows you to have a lot of interaction with games. If you're going to play a first-person shooter, you want to have a trigger in your hand. And the ability to run around using the analog stick is something we didn't have. So I'm actually in some ways relieved that the first one failed, because the product we're going to produce is going to be a much, much better product and much better suited to the needs and wants of an average gamer or the consumers that we're targeting.
Well, this is very exciting stuff. I'm really glad I had the chance to try it out. One last question for you is, when we started out, I know this is a prototype, needed a little help. I joked that I felt a bit like David Copperfield getting ready to go into the water tank. For the consumer version, do you have some ideas on making it even easier to wear?
Yes, that's one of the things that the Kickstarter money is going towards. Is we're actually talking to industrial designers right now about making this really, really easy. Our goal is to get it under 2 minutes that you can put on the full suit. And so a lot of the problems with these is the straps have to go through buckles. We want a system you can put on like a glove, wrap the thing around your hand, and just go.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And working on the premise that everything is successful at the Kickstarter, do you see this something that would be at a retail store, mail order? Do you have a methodology in mind of getting this out there?
We mostly, as long as we get it out there, we think that the gaming community wouldn't mind buying it on the internet on a place like Amazon, and that's primarily where a lot of people do shopping, but eventually we want to get into some of those retail store places. But that's going to take a little bit of time for us to get there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining us. This is really exciting stuff. This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at CES 2014 at the YEI exhibit. Thanks again.